All right, you're watching DefenseReview.com. I am back with Dave Pavlick of Arsenal Democracy, and he is going to show us this very interesting G19 type gun called the Blackside 19MC.
Yep.
Okay, and for Mayhem Carry.
Yeah, so folks are already familiar with our Blackside. We did a Blackside full size, and we offered a Blackside compact in the 19 size. This is kind of a special edition of that, so folks already know we've teamed up with Mayhem Syndicate with their Compensator. So Mayhem Syndicate developed a Compensator, and I was a skeptic. Like a lot of people, there's two problems I typically have with a Compensator. One, they're typically too long. They solve that problem. This only adds the length of a Glock 17 onto a 19. And the other problem is the way they're typically fixed on there. So they were doing a roll pin, which they're still doing for their Cali comp, but most other people are doing something way worse than that, and that's typically set screws and Loctite. So that poses a problem when you need to take it off in a hurry. It poses a problem when you need to try and use your suppressor. It poses a problem when you want to change out your front sight, or really do any kind of real maintenance or cleaning on the gun. So we teamed up. We had a system we were developing for a very small suppressor we called Quick Lock. And Quick Lock basically uses what I would call an AK multi-device style detent. So basically we use a spring-loaded detent and a notch corresponding in that barrel. So we utilize the same kind of short threads that you see here. And basically, if you want to remove it, use your tools that you always have at hand. You press on that detent right there. It comes right off. I'm going to throw it back on. You can see that spring-loaded detent right there and the notch it corresponds with. You want to throw that back on, you just start it, thread it, and then
Click.
It's locked and it's there for good.
Bam.
The pin we're using is a very strong pin. It's made out of a 17.4. It's actually hardened to within the same hardness as this nitrided barrel, and basically it's to the same material spec and hardness as the firing pins used on the LMT grenade launcher. So it's very hard spec. We wanted to make sure it wasn't going to warp or have any kind of bend under recoil or anything else. The actual Compensator itself, this one here is still in the raw, but we'll be making them out of 416 stainless, the same material we'll be making the barrels out of, and those two will be kind of in a matching set. So we actually included them in this. So what makes this kind of slightly different from the normal Blackside 19 that we've got.
And we should also mention that you're essentially using a Gen 3 non-captured.
Right. Yeah. So this is an uncaptured stainless steel and then melanited guide rod. So you can actually take this and a hammer and hammer it through a 2x4. You're never going to break this. You never have to worry about a screw popping out or coming loose under heat or pressure. And then this is a round 1911 type spring. I think we talked about it maybe last year talking about Blackside, but this was kind of spec'd out along with this this little buffer indent here. It reduces recoil, it's smoother cycling, and we know some folks that tend to swim in salt water, and their SOP when they come up on the sub is they'll breach, they'll come up on top of the sub, they'll use fresh water, and they'll actually spray all the parts once they're field stripped in order to get the salt off, and then they'll spray it with oil, and then it'll be good to go. And this is just much easier to get to all those nooks and crannies. And a flat wire spring will tend to actually take the coating off of a guide rod like that.
And do you want to mention who makes the spring or no? Or is that...
Yeah, it's actually made by the people who spec a lot of our springs, and that's W.C. Wolf and Sons. They've been doing springs for a very long time, and they're pretty much some of the only people we trust to make the springs for it.
Very cool. All right, and so yeah, the little things count in a gun.
And so
you also maybe should mention before you close this gun back up, if you can take it apart one more time. I mean, the things you guys do to smoothen everything up. I mean, you do some internal things.
Yeah. So I mean, this is our switch trigger. This switch trigger is actually
so that's the
it's
switch.
fitted specifically
right
to
there.
this gun because we built this gun from the ground up. But yeah, there are no stamping marks on our trigger bars. Everything's highly polished. A benefit of that is we get to actually go over every single angle, every part that engages and doesn't engage, and then because we have all this stuff highly polished chrome, this actually has had a little over 1,000 rounds through it within the last 2 days, and it's still actually pretty clean. And the parts where there's still carbon stuck to it, I can just kind of wipe that off with my thumb, and it's bright and shiny again. So they stay cleaner longer, they take lube, and they're a lot easier to kind of do maintenance on.
And switch trigger again is instant on-off type trigger, but still yet very
Yep.
strong and safe. Short reset and bam.
And the full travel of that trigger is what it takes to do reset. And then once again, I should mention that all of our Blacksides are now, we debuted this at TriggerCon, but instead of using an impregnated texture in the Cerakote, we actually now spray molten steel. It's a process we call E2 for extreme environment. It's basically indestructible.
It's like stucco. I call it like, you know, slide stucco almost.
It's like steel stucco.
Steel stucco,
So a lot of people are taking material off a slide. We take it off and then we put it back in the texture that we want it. So we're still reinforcing the metal of the slide.
And I also should mention that, you know, I just tried the new switch trigger, and it's actually improved. You guys have improved it a bit.
So we've really dialed it in at this point. We've made at this point thousands of switch triggers, and we've really kind of dialed it in. We do have one more addition that we're probably going to come out with within the next quarter, and that'll be Switch 2.0. But
What'll that do?
we're basically going to use a lot of the lessons we've learned in the first switch. We're going to change some slight geometry to the trigger shoe face, slight aesthetic changes, and then we'll be using a slightly different connector. But it will feel pretty much exactly the way this one feels, which, like you said, is much improved from our early prototypes a couple years ago. And so we call this the MC because it's Mayhem Carry. This will come standard with our barrel and the Mayhem Comp with quick lock.
And this will the quick lock, and this will be nitrided, of course, black nitrided.
This will be black nitrided stainless. The barrel will be black nitrided stainless. It will have AD markings on it. We're still finishing out how we're going to do that. We were going to CNC engrave it. We're actually going to sinker engrave it, so it will have our letters and markings, but where it's raised, there will be the lettering. Where the actual cutaway is will actually be textured. It's actually it won't be a texture as rough as this, but it will be texture left behind by wire and sinker EDM.
Right, and we should mention that this Trijicon RMR optic here, red dot, is co-witnessed with the suppressor sights, the iron sights that you have on here. So perfectly like co-witnessed. It's hard to see. It's hard to get it's hard to get it so you can see it in there, but it's co-witnessed perfectly.
Yep. So while this won't come standard with an actual RMR, the Mayhem Carry will come standard with, aside from this extra texture top cut, it will come standard with an RMR cut. It will be cut for an RMR 02, and instead of the RMR, which would be an extra charge, it will come with a carbon cap done by Jaegerworks. And we've got the Mayhem Syndicate, their laser engraved backplate.
And you like the RMR now. I mean, you really like it. They've improved it a bit, correct?
The RMR 02 is much improved from the 01. We had some shock issues, a couple blooming issues from Recoil, a couple other stuff, and the first RMR 01s. We've since traded those in the Trijicon, and they've upgraded them to the RMR 02. And yeah, we think it's a heck of an optic now, and it's probably the most popular and most requested optic we've got.
Very cool. And of course, this is the you get. Do you want to mention who you get these frames from with the
Yeah, so
Beaver
this starts off as a Timberwolf. They call it the TWC Timberwolf Compact. Obviously, we do some of our magic to it in the contouring and texturing. We do a twice stipple. We kind of call like a dragon scale. It is rough enough to provide texture attraction, but it's smooth enough that it won't capture too much DNA, and it won't snag on your silky kind of Under Armour shirt or suit clothing or jacket, things like that.
And you've got the great beaver tail grip tang on there.
Yep, you know, their beaver tail, the way it comes is a little more squared off. We actually kind of angle it slightly, so it's not quite as obtrusive, but it still serves its purpose to prevent that slide bite if you've got a real high grip, as you do and I do.
And you chamfer also the front of the slide, we should mention. So
We do, yeah. We've always chamfered our slides. We've got some pretty intense geometry the way it goes in, multifaceted.
helps pull it out of the suppressor holster and stuff, right?
It does help pull out of the compressor, creating that nose. Also, if you kind of come a little bit shy of, or a little bit too proud of the texture itself, it actually helps in pulling. That's actually one of the designs in the, you know, if you think of the old Beretta 92, the way it kind of champers in, that's actually designed for a pinch grip to actually rack and action the slide at a battery.
You got the Picatinny rail down there?
Yeah, we love that there's a Picatinny, a 1913 standard Picatinny desk cover. We've got a little bit of a shelf here for your support thumb to catch on both sides, be you left-handed or right-handed.
And we should also mention that the Lone Wolf, you actually prefer the polymer material itself over the standard Glock material.
Yeah,
And
so
it's essentially a little bit firmer, like a more rigid, stronger.
they are using a stronger material, even though they have a slightly thinner frame. There is less warping. We've got some buddies who are
Less flex.
shooters and operators. They're guys who are so strong in their grip that when they actually press the mag release, sometimes the mag will only come halfway out. It's because they're actually flexing that frame slightly, and it's trapping the mag. We don't really have that issue with this. It's a lot stiffer. We notice that when we're grinding. We notice that when we're actually stippling and burning. It is a different, stronger material, and the dimensions are actually a little bit tighter. We think that's why the trigger feels better, and we think that's why the tolerances are more consistent from frame to frame.
Very cool, and that's pretty much it. And then you've got a little mag well on here.
Right, we've got, this is currently their magwell. We are kind of developing our own magwell to work with this. We've got obviously magwells for the 19 and the 17 currently. So this is kind of going to be the next evolution. For right now, their magwell is their OEM magwell, and it works pretty good for most.
Very cool. The Arsenal Democracy Blackside 19 Mayhem.
Yep.
Carry.
MC.
All right, very cool. Thank you, Dave. Really appreciate it. Arsenal Democracy at SHOT Show 2018, and you are watching DefenseReview.com.